So Gotham Knights is an extremely underrated DC live-action television series centering around the mystery of who killed Batman, with his son Turner Haynes, a brand new character introduced specifically for this season, and a group of other characters being framed. And I just loved this series. I love that they were taking the mythos and just doing something very different with it. For example, bringing characters that are typically sidelined and doing something brand new with the material and bringing the Court of Owls front and center. So honestly, I feel like this series was so underappreciated. And as far as most TV shows are concerned, I think that this first season did a really good job in terms of setting up the origin of what this DC universe is going to be like. And they have the remit and creativity to do things that are really, really different. For example, I love the fact, I know it got majorly criticized when it first got announced, that they are going to introduce a brand new character being the adopted son of Bruce Wayne, but I think it was done really, really well, as he was a bit of a combination of Dick Grayson, Tim Drake, Jason Todd, and Damian Wayne as well. And I feel like it was the true definition of an Elseworld storyline, as they take everything that you know and love and are able to do things that are a little bit different. So it's not the same cookie cutter storyline and material that you've seen so many times before, which is another reason actually why I love the equally underrated, brilliant The Batman animated series, which took the mythos but just did different things with the characters, and I just love it. I know that those kind of storylines don't always work, but I thought it was pretty innovative how they did it over here. And at the time, it was very separated from all of the other DC productions, mainly the Arrowverse, the Titansverse, the Doom Patrol universe. It was definitely its own thing, and because of all of the changes in leadership, for example at the time James Gunn joining, and then all of the knock-on effects in terms of DC just wanting to slimline and really focus all of the TV shows to be part of the DCU, along with all of the changes in leadership from a Warner Brothers perspective, the CW kind of being axed, ultimately, unfortunately, led this show to be cancelled. But we are going to be breaking everything down in this series review. So let's start with the first ever trailer that was released, and unfortunately, people were just wanting to ridicule this show left, right, and center, and so didn't really give it a chance. I honestly think if they did, they would have come to appreciate it, as it was just created from such a loving place. The main criticisms was that none of these characters have costumes. I think it's fine for an origin series for that to be the case, and they obviously want to differentiate it from all of the other DC output, and along with the fact that it's not based on Dick Grayson or Jason Todd or one of the other more popular characters, I honestly think, like I said before, that they did the right thing in terms of creating their own narrative. And in turn, I feel like Turner Haynes was actually a pretty cool lead character. And even though this season was only 13 episodes long, I feel like they covered really interesting material. For example, who is the person or group of people that are responsible for Bruce Wayne's death? Is Bruce Wayne / Batman responsible for Turner Haynes' parents' death? And I thought it was pretty dark how Turner Haynes was manipulated into thinking that Bruce Wayne did this in cold blood, and so only adopted Turner Haynes out of feeling guilty and feeling pity over him and remorse. But I really like how they cleaned the image of Bruce Wayne by the end of it by saying actually he was just defending his life because his parents were sent as assassins. I wish that we would have explored this storyline in terms of Turner Haynes actually responding to this newfound information a little bit more. I feel like Harvey Dent and Two-Face were a little bit sidelined, and he was kind of doing that all on his own, but then I feel like it was really clever how he was then interwoven into the Duela plot, and it was so unexpected that actually Duela, who has been living under the glory that she is the daughter of the Joker, now actually realizes that she is the daughter of Harvey Dent, and maybe he is even more psychotic than the Joker in his newfound persona. That storyline just had so much potential, and it would have been absolutely incredible to have observed in season 2. I feel like the Court of Owls are always this mysterious group in all of the other incarnations of Batman in media, but you really see how chilling, narcissistic, twisted, evil they are. And at first, I was like, oh god, how are these group of kids going to go up against them? But actually, they have shown that kids against evil parents can work really, really well. For example, in the Runaways, the first 2 seasons were pretty much based on that premise, and they did it really, really well over there, and it's equally done really, really well over here as well. And I love how every single episode has got a quintessential action sequence in there. A little bit unrealistic that these group of kids are easily able to defeat so many big group of adults. But then again, I guess some of them were trained by Batman / Bruce Wayne, and they have just got nothing to lose, so are just happy to throw themselves in there. Then speaking of the Runaways, I feel like this show is a little bit of a hybrid of a number of other shows as well. For example, like I said, the Runaways, Riverdale, Titans, Gotham, all of these shows just like combined in this one just with a bit of a gritty DC edge, which I honestly just absolutely loved, and I just wish more people would have been able to save this show. So let's talk about that ending. So Rebecca Marsh is revealed to be the master manipulator of all of the Court of Owls, and she has been living for hundreds of years and so was happy to dispose of everybody, mainly driven by her love for Harvey Dent, as she has been disposing of her partners for so many years, and for whatever reason she just thought that Harvey Dent is the right person for her, not the White Knight version of the character but actually the darker version of him. And her husband Lincoln and all of the other Court of Owls were happy and willing and wanting to pin all of the blame on Harvey Dent, but out of love she didn't want to do that, so she sacrificed all of them. It was a little bit unexpected and shocking for sure, but I feel like if they had gone down the road of putting all of the blame on Harvey Dent, then it would have meant that everything that they had been building up towards across this season would have made sense in terms of getting Lincoln to be his true rival. And speaking of that rivalry, I think Lincoln was such a formidable character, and just to dispose of him so easily was just a little bit disappointing. It was very Joker encoded as well in terms of Duela and Harvey, even though they don't know it, even though the other Gotham Knights have to inform them that actually if you save yourself you are going to be killing thousands of other people, and the other Gotham Knights weren't trusting Duela to sacrifice herself in order to save all of these other people. And I absolutely loved the relationship between Turner Haynes and Duela, as both of them are always the people that believe in the other one despite nobody else doing so. So Turner Haynes is convincing all of the other Gotham Knights to give her a chance, and Duela ultimately decides seemingly happy to sacrifice herself, but she knows that potentially Harvey Dent / Two-Face / the Gotham Knights are hopefully able to get her out of this sticky situation. And speaking of origin storylines, the origin of Two-Face was so brutal to watch, and the way in which he just went full evil villain in terms of flipping his now iconic coin and seeing whether or not Jane is going to live or not, and then happily kill her, was just so shocking and unexpected. And I just wish that we would have got a continuation to really see what they would have done next with Two-Face, especially as Duela is his daughter and her mum was willing to just sacrifice her just in order to get a load of money. So would Two-Face have actually loved her in the way that Harvey Dent wanted to? And then speaking of Duela, she had an awful day. I mean, talk about a load of bad things happening to her. She gets kidnapped, she finds out the Joker isn't her dad and actually Harvey Dent is her dad. She sees her dad going through this horrific treatment, turning into Two-Face. Her mum gives her up happily for money. She then doesn't know that her mum actually has passed away. She's got this massive burden of potentially sacrificing herself for thousands of other people, and then to top it all off, when she's finally reunited with Turner Haynes and seems to have a bit of a happy path ahead of her, she has to witness his death in terms of the destruction of the Wayne Tower building. This character has just gone through so much in just a couple of days, and so I loved it how at the end it seems as if that she is going to be the new leader of the Gotham Knights, even though across this season she was always a little bit selfish and was happy to leave them, but Turner Haynes being part of the group is the thing that always brought her back. But now that he's not there, the fact that she wants to lead them I just think means so much. And all of the other characters are happy to go back to student life, and I think this could have been really interesting too. I know a lot of people don't always like high school teen based storylines, but I feel like they typically are interesting, especially when they have a secret identity, and this could have been how the Gotham Knights really have their own costumes. And speaking of Turner Haynes going back into the building, he obviously now knows that Bruce Wayne wasn't the bad guy, that Lincoln was manipulating him into believing that he was, and so wanted to get all of his other diaries, and so goes back to the penthouse in order to get it. But now an even more psychotic Rebecca, who seemingly has come back from the dead, along with a number of other Talons, are now going to destroy him. But then he is saved by these French mercenaries with these super powered weapons, and then is saved. I wonder and I hope that he did actually get to keep all of those diaries that he went back for. And I love the fact that he is now face to face with Henry Ducard, who is the person that trained not only Bruce Wayne but also his assassin parents. So on paper, why on earth would this guy want to train with him? I am guessing that at the start of season 2 he would have been wanting to just go back to the Gotham Knights. This is a perfect time to just do a bit of brainstorming about what could have happened in season 2. So my guess is that Turner Haynes would have rejected Henry Ducard's offer of training him up and would have wanted to go back to the Gotham Knights, but then maybe Henry captures him, does some mind brainwashing or manipulation or something to trick him into becoming his new assassin, and then maybe we would have had parallel concurrent storylines of him doing missions for Henry whilst the Gotham Knights are doing their own missions as well. And then I'm sure at the mid-season point these two groups and storylines would have then clashed and then we would have seen the epic moment of Duela coming face to face with Tanner Haynes, and maybe she would have moved on with Brody, which would have created that triangle that we saw right at the start of the season with Tanner, Stephanie, and Brody. And considering Duela has lost so much by the end of season 1, I think seeing him again would have just brought so much emotion, and I love the chemistry between these guys. I feel like sometimes chemistry between characters is forced, and even though you would have thought on paper, seeing the kids with Batman and Joker trying to set up a relationship does feel a little bit forced, even though it does sound epic at the same time. I feel like both Oliver Turner and Olivia Rose Keegan had so much natural chemistry together that I feel like it would have just worked together even more when they would have come together in season 2. So on that note, let's go through the very talented cast of Gotham Knights. So I feel like Oscar Morgan did a really good job in bringing to life Tanner Haynes. I love the fact that, like I said before, that they had this blank sheet of paper and that they could have gone down any direction with Tanner Haynes, and I really liked it, how he was a true nice guy but did always have a little bit of darkness inside of him at the same time. I feel like we never really got to see him as the prince of Gotham, especially being the son of Bruce Wayne, potentially being the heir to all of his millions, even though in Bruce Wayne's world he wanted to give it all to charity. So I would have loved that. I feel like even though he was called Bat Brat a lot by Duela, I would have loved to have seen that personification of the character, and maybe in season 2 we could have seen that because now maybe Henry Ducard is going to give him a lot of money as well. But nonetheless, love the idea of Tanner Haynes, and I feel like he was portrayed in a really good way, and I feel like some of his one-liners could have come across a little bit cringy and a little bit cheesy, but I feel like it was delivered really, really well, and I feel like it worked within the fabric and the script that they had in this show. Next, let's talk about Olivia Rose Keegan, who I feel like was just absolutely legendary as Duela. I feel like the daughter of Joker just has so much potential, and I feel like partnering her up with the son of Batman is just so good on paper. And like I said before, the natural chemistry between these two characters was just coming across on screen so well. And she has just gone through so much in her life, and you can tell that she is really happy deep down being part of a group, but all of her trauma just doesn't allow her to enjoy it, which is why she's obviously been running away a couple of times. But I love that by the end of the first season, it seems like she is in a really strong place despite going through so much. For example, a mother who has abandoned her on a number of different occasions, especially right at the end where she is seeming like she's going to have a happily ever after with her, and then finding out that this persona that she has painted for herself in terms of being the Joker's daughter actually isn't true, and she's actually Harvey Dent's daughter, and then seeing him turning into Two-Face. Obviously this character's mind is just an absolute explosion, and I feel like it just would have been fascinating to see what direction they would have gone down with her in season 2. I really like the character of Carrie Kelley. Obviously none of the other Robins are here, and it was really interesting to see the most recent iteration of Robin over here, the official sidekick of Batman in this universe, and she obviously ripped out the final couple of pages of his diary. I completely agree with Tanner Haynes. I feel like it wasn't her place to do this, even though she was trying to come from a place of love for it. As if Tanner Haynes had seen those pages, he would have just been so driven to find out the truth, and maybe he would have done. Of course, they obviously set up the plot about who is the person that ripped out these pages in a good way at the start of the season. I do feel like they could have done a little bit more storyline-wise with Carrie Kelley instead of her mother understandably just wanting to protect her all the time. Misha Collins was so good as Harvey Dent. I mean, if you're going to bring Misha Collins in this show, you have to give him a good part, and I feel like he played the White Knight personification of Harvey Dent in such a good way, and then equally played Two-Face in such a good way too. I feel like his performance was very inspired by both Moon Knight and the Green Goblin from the Spider-Man movie by William Dafoe, and I feel like the way in which he went full Two-Face by the end was just absolutely incredible, and is just so criminal that we're not going to be seeing more of it. Stephanie Brown was a cool character. She's born into wealth, but she never really feels super entitled. I feel like the storyline with her and her twisted parents felt very Gossip Girl inspired, and she definitely brings the brains in this operation, and I feel like she could have been a really good partner to both Brody and to Tanner Haynes, but obviously it was never meant to be, as she was ultimately destined to be with Harper, and I feel like their little relationship growth was really interesting. And of course in the future, Stephanie Brown does become Batgirl, so that could have been interesting to see what direction they would have gone down with this character in season 2. Speaking of Harper Row, I love the fact that she starts off being incredibly jealous and having so much hatred for Stephanie, being like, look, I could have had that life if I was born into money as well. And I feel like the romance with Stephanie felt very natural and very earned, and I thought it was interesting as well at the start of the season when she was doing all of the bad things with Dylan for the right reasons, as she wanted to save money for her brother's operation. Speaking of her brother, I feel like Cullen Row, the way in which he infiltrates the GCPD on a number of different occasions was actually quite funny. I just wish that they would have given him a couple more meatier storylines. I like the potential of him just wanting to be best friends with Tanner Haynes. I think that could have been an interesting arc. And I also really like the character of Brody, especially by the end of it. He's pretty much indestructible and immortal, even though at the start of this season he was a little bit of a douchebag and I feel like his acting was a little bit wooden. But then by the end of it, he was one of the most interesting characters, especially as he is the son to the main two leads of the Court of Owls. So he truly could have been fascinating in a future season, especially as I feel like he could have gone down the dark side with having this much power. So overall, I absolutely loved Gotham Knights. It wasn't a perfect show, of course. They could have done a couple of things differently. I feel like certain decisions, for example, what they did with Rebecca didn't really make sense. But I feel like they got so many things right, and I feel like it was really great that they were doing brand new things with the source material. I feel like it was really great seeing how devilish the Court of Owls really can be. And it's just so disappointing that we're not going to be getting a continuation, even though the showrunners definitely did try. But as far as miniseries are concerned, this one was absolutely legendary, and so for all of those reasons, I'm going to give Gotham Knights the TV series a solid 7.5 out of 10. Now I'll love to hear from you. What did you think of Gotham Knights? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.